talk to you in forever.
Good evening and welcome to the November 4th meeting of the Los Angeles Grove Town Council. If we can have the roll call, please.
Mayor Browning,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gerald,
Here.
Councilman Goldenegg, not here, Councilman Liang,
Here.
Councilman Rocket.
Yeah.
If you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance as we lead this meeting. Let us have a civil, good meeting. We thank you for the ability to vote in a democracy. We pray for those that are overseas serving our country. Keep them safe. We pray in your name. Amen. Amen. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Ryan makes a motion. Second. Second by Ron. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Approval passes 4-0. Moving to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion. Okay. Jim makes the motion to approve. Second by Ryan. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. Moving to public comments. I've got one public comment. Dennis Lipp.
Mayor, council members, thank you for this time to allow me to congratulate the mayor, Dr. Lauda, for your efforts down at the county commission on Wednesday, and speaking well for the town of Los Angeles Groves and the impingement of thousands of homes and basis square feet of commercial being put in to our north. As you know, it was passed by the county commission. But I'm donating personally to the alerts group for their attempt to bring this to court so that an administrative judge can rule on whether or not the county handled this properly and whether or not this was a legal action. I would like to ask the town council to either instruct the town attorney to become part, join in with them on this lawsuit, or to at least make a substantial donation to the cause for this. Secondly, I'd like to give a shout out to the Yang family, including Long Chu and all the other owners of Silver Lake Palm Beach, Silver Lake Enterprises, and Dancing Crane for putting their 2 cents worth in for the Minto project. I guess we're all developers at our core. Thanks.
Hello, Mayor. I just turned in my, if I could go forward.
All right.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of what Dennis said, and that over and over and over again, as the mayor knows, I proved to the commission, one-on-one with the commissioners, the fact that the 0.3 million square feet of built commercial and 1.1 million square feet of approved to be built commercial, for a grand total of 1.4 million square feet of commercial just on the State Road 80 section of Los Angeles Groves, Seminole Pratt from State Road 80 to North Lake, and North Lake from Seminole Pratt to Ibis. That's 1.4 million square feet before they gave them the other 2 million square feet. So we're in for a bunch. Also, I've already donated to the alerts group in my second check, trying to get something. We are going forward with a lawsuit of some sort or another. The other one, I had on like to see the council come forward with a resolution strongly condemning the 5 members of the county commission that voted that way. They have absolutely no regard for the citizenship, because the list of citizens, including the North County Coalition, a couple other coalitions, goes to well over 10,000 residents in this area. Well above and beyond just the 5,000 signed and double-checked petitions against Minto. But it's not democracy, it's autocracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, moving to presentations. We have Loxahatchee Grove's Girl Scout Troop 20673. We have a representative from them. Come on up.
Is it Girl Scout?
Really changed a lot since I was.
Hey, it's the 90s, right?
Right. 2014.
I'm here tonight. My wife Tracy, as most of you know, is the Girl Scout leader for Loxahatchee Grove's only Girl Scout troop. And this year they're doing the food drive again in conjunction with Loxahatchee Grove's Elementary. And I did talk to some people over at our polling place today, and what they're going to be doing is they're going to be collecting food. They're going to be collecting gift cards to Walmart, Winn-Dixie, Publix, in increments of $20, or checks will be accepted at the elementary school and also at the town office. There will be a bin placed at the town office tomorrow morning to put canned goods into. All this food that's collected here stays in Loxahatchee Groves. It does not go to any food banks anywhere else. And it is surprising the amount of children at Loxahatchee Groves Elementary that go hungry on a daily basis. To see it, I really didn't know how extensive it was, but it is extensive. So anything that does come from the community stays in the community. And this is something they're doing for Thanksgiving, and they're doing for Christmas also. So anybody that wants to donate, the town office staff will have an envelope over there tomorrow for anybody to drop any checks by. You make the checks out to Loxahatchee Groves Elementary School, and in the memo put Thanksgiving food drive or Christmas food drive, whatever you want to do. This again is only for those kids that go to our elementary school.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any questions for the leader's husband? Ron?
I'd just like to compliment the leaders and the girls for taking time out to do this. I think the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are an outstanding group. I'm glad you're looking out for Loxahatchee, and I know we have a lot of hungry people in Loxahatchee, so thank you for taking time to do this.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you all very much for coming, and we'll sure support you. All right, moving to item 5A, committee, Virginia. Come on up.
Virginia Standish, Finance Audit Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, we are still unable to give you a financial report due to software issues in reporting, which seems to be timely in regard to what we're reviewing. I would like to let you know that we did review 3 software companies. Mr. Underwood did specifically ask each one of them if their software as a service met municipal government compliance, and each one of them could not respond that it did. So they have to get back to management if they are even compliant. That's the first issue. The second issue was migration. There were different amount of hours quoted as far as migration, which means the turnover from the software from one system to the next. Some of us felt that they could afford a bit more time towards migration than what they were offering. And there was also, one vendor was offering an adjustment in price, I believe you mentioned that. So basically, we're waiting for responses on the government compliance. There may be an adjustment in price, and then management will review and give you their findings.
Okay. Any questions?
from one package to another software package. And making that conversion, we had all the information, it did not print properly. I would have to show you the reports, but where you would expect a parentheses around the number, you might see a minus sign or vice versa. So today, as a matter of fact, last night, 11:04 p.m., we have a new run, looks good. We're checking it out today, and they'll have it for the next meeting.
This is just a normal, I should say normal, this is just,
There's nothing normal
in
about
the
it.
case of having software, you've had been running the software, and there's a reason to change to something else before we even go to the next step, which is what the Finance Committee is analyzing now. We have yet to go to that step, but right now we're trying to just do
We want to be in a position of being able to take the old data, because we want to have as much historical data as we can, move it into the new system that the council will select. And that data transition is somewhat problematic from time to time. I've done it 5 times and it's never been fun.
So this is related to us preparing for one of the software companies that we're,
Part of what's going to come out, part of what's coming out of this is that, the ability to upload that data.
Okay, any other questions for Wes? All right, moving on to item 6A. You want to take this, Bill?
Again, Mayor, Council, basically, the Palm Beach County Commission has taken the path of trying to, I guess, realign themselves with the South Florida Regional Planning Council versus the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Heretofore, over 35 years, Palm Beach County and the Commission have aligned themselves with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. There's a move afoot on how to transition away from that council and to the South Florida, which is 90-day route. We've been asked by the Palm Beach League of Cities to support their position that the county maintain their coordination with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, not moving to the South Florida Regional Planning Council.
Okay.
Would like to read the title?
Yes, if you would, please.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Wasatch Coast, Florida, strongly objecting to the recent action taken by the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners to withdraw Palm Beach County from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council and to request membership of the South Florida Regional Planning Council instead. Strongly supported the county's continued membership of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, providing for distribution, and providing for effective date and other purposes. This would be a roll call.
Okay. Before we start, if I would, I want to give you a little background on this. If you followed the Minto presentation at all, one of the problems the county had, other than every town around it was against it, and a lot of people were against it. The other problem they had was it almost didn't pass the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Committee. They are more conservative. That includes Martin, St. Lucie. The county commissioners, I think, to make future projects easier, have determined to cut their ties after 35 years with the Treasure Coast and align themselves with Dade and Broward County, of which, if they do that, there is not a project that they would think to be too intense, because they'll be looking at it in the eyes of people in Dade and Broward County. So anyway, that's just a simple way of what the county commission is trying to do right now. So I'll entertain a motion, a second, and we'll have discussion. We have a motion by Jim, second by Ryan. Discussion by council members. I've got several here by the public. Bill Loud is the first one.
Bill Lowe, he wrote, I want to congratulate the council for going forward with this. It's absolutely ridiculous if we pull our ties away from Treasure Coast Regional Planning. And if it wasn't for the personal friendship between Valerche and Perry and Minto, I think Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council would have come forward with a much more stringent report than they did come forward with. I was there that day. And I don't know what's going on, but hopefully the state will have a turnaround pressure brought to bear, because this whole thing boils down to going up to the state level. DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, got turned into the Department of Economic Opportunity. So what's that tell you? If it looks nice, pave it over. I'm from Oakland Park. I grew up there when on the north side of our property was the Hawkins Cattle Ranch. 8 blocks south of me was Oakland Park Eggs. Oakland Park Boulevard stopped at Andrews. I mean, stopped. It was a dirt trail over the railroad track. I am that old, yes. Anyway, I've seen a lot of changes down here. We had old 2-lane US 1. We drove out of the town, through the country, into another town. It's coming. I moved out here to get away from it. I looked at the Gold Coast as a tube of toothpaste. This disclosed me, and I popped out around the corner. Well, I thought I would mean fighting me in the ass.
Thank you, Bill. All right, that's the only comment I've got, so I've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Roll call vote?
Councilman Rocket,
Yes.
Councilman Liang,
Yes.
Mayor Browning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gerald.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, resolution passes 4-0. Moving on to 6B. Bill?
Mayor, Council, this is, we went out and got sealed quotes, responses for authorizing trail work on 6th Ward North. And that issue came back, and we're recommending versus going with, the district was very beneficial, offered to go with a steel gate, new steel gate, that we would work into the system. We had engineering plans prepared, bids, requests went out, we received 3. One of the vendors did not meet a mandatory pre-bid requirement or pre-response, pre-report requirement. The other 2, they were very close on the base bid. The town actually wanted an option to do the aluminum gates, so we accepted the option to do the aluminum gates. We had 2 firms qualifying firms did provide aluminum gates. Significant difference between the 2. As a result, we're recommending the low bidder, which was CNC, with the base bid and the aluminum gates at $28,300. That takes care of the implementation, the poles, the gate structures on 6th Court North, and the appropriate land clearing. And some culvert work, I apologize.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, this is presented to you in the whole resolution with findings, because in order to proceed, since it wasn't the formal bid process, and it's over 25,000, you have to make findings that it's beneficial to the town to move forward without going through a more formal process. That's what it's done. And under your procurement code, this is required.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Change this.
Okay.
Leave the town.
Yes. All right. We have a motion by Jim, second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, second by Ron.
Resolution of the Town Council, Town of Wasatch Coast, Florida, relating to the 6th Court North Equestrian Trail improvements, finding that further competitive bidding is not in the best interest of the town, providing ordinance 2008-09, awarding the contract to CNC Motor Services for the 6th Court Equestrian Trail improvements, and authorizing expenditure of $28,300 for such work, authorizing town manager to execute necessary documents to proceed with the work and providing for an effective date.
Okay.
This would be a roll call.
All right. Discussion by council. Ron?
Couple questions, Bill. If we would have went with steel gates, the price would have been $24,200 for CNC.
The price would have been $24,200 with CNC, yes, sir.
Okay, and $23,600 with WBI.
Yes, sir.
Here's how I feel about steel compared to aluminum. Aluminum is lighter, but scrap metal is hot nowadays, okay? We put up aluminum gates, I do believe that people are gonna cut them off, they're gonna take them off. Now, steel gates, first of all, they're not easy to steal, okay? They're not easy to cut up, and they have no value at the scrap metal yard. So that's the reason I would not like aluminum. Plus, when we go aluminum, we go with the $25,000 procurement policy. So those are the only two things I disagree with. I disagree going over everything when we don't have to, and I do not believe we need to put aluminum out there for people to make a living off of.
Okay, any other discussion by council?
Yeah, I'm not gonna be intimidated by potential scrap metals, stealing our aluminum. If we have to, put some little country boys out there to kind of keep your eye on it. But I think it's a better deal, we put them up, put them up once, and that will last, it's a better solution to the situation.
We did take into consideration that the proposal that we're recommending, those gates, if in the event something were to happen, they were not as expensive as one of the other sets of gates were. And we could replace them with an alternate method.
Oh, after they steal the aluminum, then
Well,
we try to
hopefully
steal it
they
out.
would not steal it.
That's $24,000?
Yeah, all right, anybody else? Any other? The only thing is, if we get away with the aluminum gates, it does change a little bit.
It does.
Because
There's
that's
a $600 difference.
That's what's.
And we had a difficult time making a recommendation, but we were looking at the total package, brand new gates, aluminum lasts longer, has a longer life. That's where we were at.
Okay. For somebody. Okay, I've got Keith Harris.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Contractors and construction industries is always putting out bids. They look for the base bid for consideration. There are alternates, add-ons. We have a $4,500 gate add-on to this bid process, aluminum gates. I agree completely with Vice Mayor Gerald. You can buy metal gates at $150 all day long. The 4,500 is an excessive specification that we have not seen on any application in the town before. You asked for contractors to bid on work. The town has the opportunity to do anything with the bids once they receive them, but in order to keep on receiving bids, you might want to consider looking at the base bid for determination and then work with alternatives or options with that base bidder. That is the norm in the construction industry. We're of course talking about government. Government handles these completely different. But I agree with Vice Mayor Gerald that $4,500 aluminum gates is excessive. It should go back to the base bid and reconsider the ordinance bid. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Keith. George Perez.
About 45, it's 4,700. We're paying $600 for the base bid, we're paying $4,100 for gates that have to be built. There's two gates that are out here that have to be built. They're in the district, and that's the reason we're doing the base bid. And we have these gates here and installed. The reason it's coming before this is because they're asking for more money, so your budget. And I don't think this is a night that you guys need to spend $4,700. We should save it, budget it, make those improvements on the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, George. All right, any other discussion by council? Okay, I tend to agree with Ron. You know, I mean, I know myself, I just buy the galvanized, and I don't foresee me ever changing it the rest of my life. So, you know, and I do hear that the aluminum will end up down on Valadier, I think it is. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, say yes,
Councilman Liang,
no.
Mayor Browning,
No.
Vice Mayor Gerald,
No.
and Councilman Watkins.
No. All right, so it's
Well, it's gonna go back to consideration of the low bid, and whether we
WWI for $22,600.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the bid without the aluminum gate alternative.
I'll make a motion that we accept it without the aluminum alternative.
There's a second by Ryan. Further discussion? All in favor, or roll call vote?
Well, it's up to you, this is not a resolution.
Okay.
It's up to you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, moving to 7A.
Mayor, Council, this is first reading of an ordinance relative to land use on property, state property. We have presentations, I suspect that will be provided by Terry Tilday, and we have your planner, Jim Fleischman here to answer any questions you may have. 2008.
If we could, let's keep the,
Can't hear them
okay.
at all.
Speak up in the mics, please.
Thank you.
2008 or before, this has been before you. It's coming before you now as first reading of the resolution on land use. The second item will be zoning resolution for changing the zoning from AR to commercial low.
You have two different ordinances. There will be notice for public hearing at your November 18th, so you forward on first reading.
Okay.
Do them one at a time, if you'd like.
Yep.
What we'll do is I'll read the title of proposed ordinance 2014-06, and then we'll ask the applicant to present their application. Ordinance number 2014-06, the ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of West Texas, Florida, adopting amendments 14-2 SS to the Town of West Texas Comprehensive Plan, concerning a small-scale land use plan amendment application proposed by the owners of the property, Willie H. and Frankie J. Day, change the designation of the subject use of land from rural residential one dwelling unit for 5 acres to commercial low, to accommodate the future development of a maximum of 9.3 acres of commercial uses located at the southwest corner of Okeechobee Boulevard and Folsom Road, Waxahachie Groves, Florida, providing for amendment to the comprehensive plan to reflect such change, providing for conflicts that are voting effective date.
All right, I'll entertain a motion and a second, and then we'll go for discussion. Okay, Ryan makes a motion, and a second.
I'll second.
Second by Ron. Before we go any further, I really want to clarify this. Or in the neighborhood, you go back to the neighborhood plan, you go back to our comprehensive plan, we always indicated a low impact non-residential along Okeechobee. When Mr. Day came forward with his first presentation, I was very surprised, if you remember, because our staff recommended an approval at a commercial low at a .10. And I did not understand how that fit at all, low impact non-residential. I found out that because of not having the right advice when we put our comprehensive plan together, we did not put an FAR number on that. Therefore, we had a problem. So as a result, through negotiation, through a lot of other things, we decided that we made a compromise, and we came up with a .074 on this property only. On this property only, because it fits a certain criteria. It is at the corner of Okeechobee and Folsom, 2 county roads. This is not a plan approval. This is not the last look at this thing. There's going to be a lot of things. But the way I felt is I felt it was a good compromise because it took the project from a potential 44,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. If we had won with a .05, it would have taken another 8,000 square feet off. But it did reduce the intensity tremendously on this property. The owners have agreed to that, and so that's where we are tonight.
You still got to go through the application.
Still have to go through all of the application.
Yes.
So as far as entrances, as far as impact to I know there's a lot of concern about the impact to the intersection and the area. All that will be dealt with. So anyway, just want to give you a little background on this.
And these ordinances, they'll have to be heard, these have to be approved, and under charter requires 4 votes at your adoption hearings, which will be on November 18th.
Yes. Well, anyway, council, discussion? Anything?
Yeah.
I think you should hear from the applicant.
What's that?
The applicant is here.
Yeah, if you want to. Just fill that. Can everybody see that all right? Okay.
Twist it a little.
Yeah, here, if we can move it just back into the corner a little bit, or else right over here for the screen, yeah. I think that's good. I think everybody's busy on that. Everybody all right with that? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Karen Kilday, as you know, representing Bill Day, sitting next to me in the last row, as you know as well. I have an aerial showing where the property is, but I think you all know where the property is, as well as everyone in here. So I'm going to be, fairly brief. Just to go through the history. The history was actually that the initial plan, which is this plan here, came forward as close to 60,000 square feet. It was 59,200 square feet. And the way it got that one, it was that it had two land uses being requested. The CL on about half of it at .10, and the CLO office at .20, which averaged together came up with a .15 FAR. And that went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did recommend approval. It was a 3-2 vote, a split vote. And it came before you. And Commissioner Rockert, I think, specifically raised the issue that night, that the concept of taking two land use to boost the FAR you'd allow on the site was undesirable and too intense. Subsequently, that on first reading was passed 3-2 with a direction that we needed to come back with a less intense project. So we came back to our second hearing, and at that point we came in with a straight CL, commercial low, land use .10, and we asked for that, which was the 44,000 which you referenced. And that night there were 4 members here, and it was a 2-2 split, and to have a land use amendment being 4 votes. So at that point, the project was not approved. There was subsequently litigation that was going on. I'm talking back, this was 2011 and 2012, over the last 2 years. And subsequently, in recent months, as mandated by the court, there was a mediation hearing. Representatives of the city there, you were there, the mayor. I was there with Mr. Day and his attorney. And it was at least 6-hour day, maybe 7 hours. And just so people know how the mediation worked, we didn't really talk to each other during the mediation. We met each other at the front. We both exchanged what we thought were the issues from each point of view. And then we were separated for the rest of the day, and discussions went back and forth. And it was a give and take procedure. And the final resolution was a cap at 30,000 square feet, which is the .074 FAR. And that is, within this resolution, you're considering a specific requirement of the project. So we then were, in order to move forward, we had 120 days, and we're in that period now. We had to refile a new application, and as required by your plan, we filed a conceptual plan to show how 30,000 could be fit on the site. But we are not here tonight for a land use approval. Site plan approval would come subsequent to first establishing the land use and the zoning. But as yet, we still did need to provide it in our concepts. Many of the things that were adopted, a preservation area for pine trees, a greenage frontage, which one of the conditions talks about getting with the equestrian advisory board about perhaps tying that into a trail system, the use of a retention as a water feature on the front of the property rather than as the back. So there are some concepts in here, the actual building layout, entrances, roadway improvements is not on the consideration tonight. So that is how we got here, and as I say, we're working under the mediation agreement, and it would take these two actions, and then following that, that would resolve the lawsuit, and Mr. Day could proceed to start designing the site plan in conjunction with it, and come back at that, later at that process. And I'm open to any questions.
Okay, any questions by the council? Okay.
I've got a couple, Mr. Pilday.
Okay.
And I realize this is probably not the time, but I just want you to know ahead of time, so when it comes time to talk about it, you won't be surprised. There's two things that I'm looking for if we follow up on this. First of all, I'm looking for a common device from Okeechobee Boulevard to Southern Boulevard to Folsom. We all know that the traffic is definitely going to increase on Folsom Road. I've had residents already talking to me about the minimum they would like to see speed tables put in, and we know how we want our speed tables and stuff, but they feel like that would help along with getting PBSO involved if necessary. The other thing is that intersection at Folsom and Okeechobee, we all know it's a dangerous intersection. All right, now, we talked about a red light a while back, probably over a year. They said that we couldn't put a red light there because we had the school. Okay, long story short, that school only works at certain times of the day. Okay, I believe that they said we couldn't do things at Seminole Pratt Whitney and Seminole Ridge High School. Well, we managed to pull it off and make that a safer intersection for those kids. At one time they said we couldn't put a red light at D Road in Okeechobee. We managed to pull that off, and that will happen sometime in the near future. So I'm concerned that we try and do one or two things. We either get a roundabout, which would help traffic flow in that intersection, or we work towards a red light. So just, I want you to keep that in thoughts while we move on.
Okay. Hey, just two quick things. One's a question. When you say a red light, you're talking about a flashing signal to require people to stop.
A stoplight, in other words, where that would be a great one, because you've got just Folsom and Okeechobee, or four-way.
Okay, and that's why I was asking. I'd have to say, well, number one, I went out and looked at it too, because I talked to some of the neighbors, and this is going to definitely require joint, not only Mr. Day's efforts, but the town's efforts and the county efforts to get it done. It's a very expensive task. It's not an easy task. It's relatively easy as it relates to Folsom for us to put a speed table at the entrance to our project. Folsom, I think it's a 2-mile run. It was built by the county as a 2-lane, what I call collector standard, super wide lanes, and straight as an arrow. And I've looked at other speed tables, and I could see they probably need 3 or 4 in the course, but you'd also need to lower the speed limit on it, and we need the county to work with us, because what we do up here won't be very effective unless we can do it in a few other things, but we'll definitely look at both issues.
Right, and one street I keep an example is Sycamore. In other words, they've got speed tables and they're spaced out probably more like we're thinking about. We changed our minds about how far we want to space them. We changed our minds about the design. In other words, so we've done some work since the last time we talked.
Are they in place?
Sycamore's been in place for years now, and everybody seems to be satisfied with them. They're a 30-mile-an-hour speed table, and any vehicle, car, truck, fire truck, can run over 30 miles an hour.
Coming from the west to Seminole?
If you take Seminole Pratt and head west.
Okay, that's just good. I've never headed west, so I need to go over.
So I hope we can work with
And
that.
that's as you approach the intersection?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Jim? My comment's gonna be along the same lines. Ron had brought up, understanding that tonight is step one, and the appropriate maybe discussion on what kind of speed, how many devices or et cetera might be involved is more appropriate, I guess, for site plan discussion. But I don't want you to go forward with a misconception that if we move this forward tonight, that everything is fine. And my perception is that I expect Mr. Day, through you, if you will, to work as hard at getting something that would take a very dangerous intersection from becoming worse, as hard as he would if it was his children that he'd be feared of, having been injured in that corner, as hard as he would if he was the person in my position looking out for the town, and not in his position only looking out for himself. That needs to be done. We need to see something, and if it's difficult, then it should become a little more intense as to what, either how you look at it, or what alternatives you look at. I mean, not to overuse, but you gotta think out of the box. And I'm looking for this document. I want to see when you come back to us, I want to see the requests, the answers, the alternatives, the further requests, and how hard you worked on something to come up with an answer that will work for us. I mean, it could be a roundabout. It could be that you have a second light there and it's only operating when the school light isn't operating. It could be that the county was to turn the school light on so that all day long it operates as a stopping device for traffic going on Okeechobee at the minimum. Something needs to be done. If this comes forward without something that addresses that issue, you get the same answer you got a number of months ago from me, which is no. It has to be done. Something has to be addressed for that particular corner. It's probably the worst corner in our community, and it's not going to get any better. And all the things Ron has brought up, certain things to consider. But we need to come up with, work very hard. I mean, I'd like to see everybody involved basically work up a sweat over this to get it done. That's kind of the intensity I'm looking for. And if we don't have an answer that we thought of up front, let's continue to think of possibilities and use the staff in terms of county and whatever anybody else comes up with that says, this is something maybe you can do to alleviate the problem. So, I mean, it's like sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned. And I have to be convinced that you've done everything that possibly, humanly possible to do, and then maybe a little beyond that. Okay?
Okay.
Mr. Day sitting there listening to you.
Thank you, Mr. Kodak.
Thank you.
All right, I've got Keith Harris, then I've got Dennis Slip.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Folsom is our local drag strip, 2 miles. People coming off Casey, off Marcelo, off Bryan, other roads, have to dodge passing vehicles because it is a route of excessive speed. The Sheriff's Department from time to time puts out their radar clock, which is just inviting people to see how fast they get those motorcycles running, how fast those Mustang GTs can go. The idea of traffic calming is paramount with the increased traffic flow from the proposed commercial property. We've heard roundabouts, traffic lights. I believe Supervisor John Ryan in the meetings several months ago, he even mentioned traffic light for Folsom and Okeechobee. It's necessary. Speed tables would work. Parked sheriff's vehicles would work if they would hook up their radar gun and work their flashing lights versus a speed arc clock. It's important to protect our residents on the Folsom area, on those side streets, and we do need the traffic calming, as what both of our town councilmen have suggested.
Thank you, Keith. Dennis Slip.
Mr. Mayor, council members, this came before the planning board serving as a local planning agency. We passed it unanimously. I think the comments made here tonight certainly do need to be put into the resolution somehow. But I want to reserve my right to also talk on the zoning thing. But something that's very important is Grace Joyce, who is on our committee. I don't think Grace is here tonight. She brought up a very good point. There's a commonly used legal tactic called the unity of title that we need to address. What the unity of title does is that if you have commercial law on your property and you manage to get a unit of title done on an adjacent property that you purchase, then that commercial law goes to that property. So I don't want to see Folsom Farms turning into an adjunct to something at the corner. So I'd like to instruct staff. We talked about this at Planning Commission, and I didn't see anything on unity of title in your paperwork. But I think the town council needs to instruct staff to have some phraseology in there that I'm sure Mike can come up with that will not allow a unity of title.
Thank you. Comment to Dennis. Now, maybe your own management can correct me, but I believe we've already started working on that, haven't we, as far as limiting.
Well, we're gonna work on this is gonna be covered to restrict the square footage on a restrictive covenant, and we're gonna put language in that restrictive covenant as well, that any rights for this property would not extend to Unity and send that over to them to review that issue.
Bill out.
Bill Lowry, E Road, it's been hanging fire for a long time, probably something needs to be done there. That intersection, you can see here, when they put that turn lane in, take a look at that little triangle there. If you remember right, I was the president of the LTLA when that was put in, and those little plastic barriers weren't there. So we had people coming over into that turn lane and going straight to the 4-lane of Okie on the other side, when people in Folsom were getting ready to make the left turn, thinking, oh, this guy's going to turn. Why we didn't have more T-bones there is well beyond me, but when I finally got George Webb to come out and look at that, and basically the response I got from the request to have something done there was, duh. I mean, staff didn't believe they didn't do it. Anyway, a couple of things. Speed bumps on a county road. Are there any?
Hagen Ranch, south of Montana.
Sycamore,
Pure county road.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sycamore.
Okay, on point 3 of this ordinance, section 2.3, townhouse road has the ability or will have the ability to ensure that necessary services for additional management public facilities are provided. Does that inure the town to pick up their top share for any road improvements? Okay, because this, with what's going on with Minto and what's already on the county, Okeechobee is slated to be 4-lane up to E Road. Why only to E Road? Go figure. I think I remember something about 140 at E as a thoroughfare that I bought for, I don't know, 58 years or something. For a while. That's what got me involved in all this nonsense. I was there 2 years and found out about the 89 Midland study. Otherwise, I'd still be back in the woods, totally ignorant. As ignorant, but not total. What else we did? Okay, in the future, there's stuff in here where if anybody else on Okie gets a higher FAR, they will automatically inure to this property. I would say move forward quickly as possible to change Okie to .05 FAR. There's in here limits of 1 story. So imagine I don't know, the uses that come forward if they're actually compatible. But if you take a look at the medical complex down here at 2 stories, it's a nice building. Okay, with the right trees, okay, you can get a lot more green space here with a 2-story building if one of these could be compatible as a 2-story. Thank you.
Okay, Marge Herzog?
Marge Herzog, A Road. I also was concerned with the future increase that could be allowed. If you remember the Day property, that second building that was built east of the Red Barn, they had that approval for many, 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 many years. Now, if they do the same thing on this project, sit there for many years before coming forward with any request for development, and you've got in there that they can increase it if anybody else on Okeechobee is allowed to increase, you're asking for trouble, unless you take that clause out of the agreement. The other thing was, why are we not sticking with some of the things that were discussed at those group meetings that we had along Okeechobee? I mean, we spent many a Saturday discussing what the residents did want or didn't want on Okeechobee. What happened with all of that stuff? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pat Painter?
Pat Painter, Raymond Drive. I'm not going to get into the roundabouts because I know they work. I did all the permitting up in Abacoa when George Webb was completely adamant against them. So they work. There's no T-boning. There may be some, sliding off the side of another vehicle, but you're not going to kill them. I'm going to get into, contrary to what Mr. Kilday says, this is fundamentally a road improvement project for people that live off of Folsom. And I'm just going to give you some ideas because traffic calming can be done in many ways. A traffic, table works, but landscape works too, and it beautifies our whole community. We've got 8 feet of unusable space either side of that road that could be imparted into a median. Landscape, trees on both sides. Nobody's going to be passing each other when they shouldn't be. And it really becomes, rather than a thoroughfare, it becomes a parkway. And I will volunteer my time, and I know there's a lot of landscape people that live in Waxahachie that can do some incredible designs for something like this. And as far as, we need to look at this as an impact, and it should come with some type of mitigation and assessments with it. So I would say that this becomes not only a special condition, a caveat, but it becomes fundamental to the whole plan if it's going to go any further at all.
Thank you, Pat. George Slug?
Jeffrey.
I'm sorry.
That George.
It's a way you spelled it. I mean, it goes back to the way I read it. I apologize, Jeff, because I look at like first letters of words and then along,
Not a problem. Blame my parents, they're Yeah. Good evening, Mayor. Jeff Swigert, Raymond Drive, Waxahachie Roads. It's been discussed with the other folks and my neighbors that have been up here before me, but just a couple points I want to make. With regards to the square footage for the Day property, what is in the current settlement agreement, I'm a pragmatist. I know that something's going to get developed on Okeechobee in that corner. It's in the neighborhood plan as far as having low density, non-residential there. It's going to happen. The key here is we've got to look at what those impacts are. Part of the concern I have is with the settlement agreement, I don't feel we've really addressed the traffic issue, or before I got to the meeting tonight, I felt we had not addressed it. I think during it now, we are addressing it. My point, I guess, would be I'd like to have a commitment from the council that prior to site plan approval, you deal with these through conditions of approval. And as far as traffic calming devices, speed tables, they are definitely most needed along Folsom Road. I spend probably 3-4 days a week running up and down there trying to stay alive for my health, but worrying about maybe getting hit by a car one day, because I've seen some near, close calls and so forth on that road. My daughter, my wife, they ride their bicycles down there. It's very dangerous. And I think as soon as that property gets developed, it's going to be attractive for future traffic. Anybody coming from Wilmington because it's a cut-through road, they avoid Crestwood. The reason for it is Crestwood has no traffic, it's not straight shot, primarily it's a speed traffic. I mean, Royal Palm Beach does an excellent job controlling the speed in the street. So it's a cut-through road, we're just gonna get more and more traffic, and I think Mr. Day needs to step up to the table and make sure that, you know, whether we use speed tables, other traffic calming devices, Pat Gator mentioned, possibly doing a parkway design with additional landscaping, I'd be amenable with that too. But please, let's make sure that that gets addressed before we move forward with the site plan approval process and get that accomplished. But I don't want to have to come back every day and say, hey, look, we should have done this much sooner. So I appreciate your support on that.
Thank you, Jeff. Before we go any further, just to remind everybody, part of that Minto approval did include a changing of Okeechobee from E Road to Folsom to 4 lane. That was part of the Minto deal that the county passed the other day. So for those that weren't interested enough in looking into it, that's already going to change things. Lawrence Corning?
I'm glad everybody's mentioning this 4 lane of Okeechobee, because 140th is, when you look at a map, is almost certainly slated to come down. When they start to head east, you're gonna probably take their first road south to Southern, which is this road that they're talking about now. So it's important to get a grasp on Okeechobee as best we can on this road. And I know things are moving better in terms of trying to figure out what's going on with Okeechobee. Is there, do we have zoning in progress? Can we do something along that?
Well, there is something going on with staff. I mean, there's nothing formally taken by council as yet, other than they have the direction to move forward with something. It's my understanding, anyway, to bring something in November to the planning and zoning board.
November planning, zoning, first reading, in December, and second
And those are active
Did that start
documented
zoning in
steps.
progress? This, these buildings that are kind of where green space is now, should that percentage increase? Is this future sites that would bring you back up to above the numbers you negotiated? Because, you know, Minto West sort of pulled the same deal where they pulled pods off the west, but they will not put any type of deed restriction on it because it drops the value of their property. Their banks probably object, and they will probably come back and take another bite of the apple, and that wouldn't surprise anybody, right? So what do we have going on here?
This is a town of Loxahatchee Groves. It is not the county.
Yeah, well, we've done our fair share of development, but these two pieces, what is these two green spaces?
I think we're building to work.
And what about the future? Is there any kind of deed restriction, or are those permanent green spaces, or what do we?
This is a site plan.
I think we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, there's going to be a second reading, there's going to be a deed restriction, or not deed restriction, a restricted covenant that's going to be accepted by the council that will restrict this property to 30,000 square feet or that additional
Very
yard, and then whatever they may want to come in to take advantage of that, they're going to have to do some sort of an application, like a site plan, for example. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Good evening, I'm Mary McNicholas, Brandon Drive. As several of the fine speakers said before me, I really feel like we need to protect our neighborhoods. You all, this is nothing new, we've talked about it for years now. The one thing that I'm gonna request is that or ask you all, is that if we can do anything to insulate Folsom Road from the traffic and everything that's tearing up our neighborhoods, it really is. Not only do we bike there, run there, try to drive, We pull out, and numerous times, myself and at least 5 of my other neighbors have been confronted with a near head-on collision. It's because of all the illegal passing, speeding. Lieutenant Combs has helped us some of this. Lieutenant Combs, I think you could address some of the traffic situation there. You all have seen some of it. You've tried to do as much as you can. I think that right now, there's 2 school bus stops on the road. Not to beat this dead horse here, but something's got to be done as far as the traffic calming. I like the ideas that both Pat and Jeff brought up, and some of the items that Lawrence had mentioned. One thing is that we have to rely on you. You're our voter representatives. We need you all to try to protect your neighborhoods this way.
Thank you, Rick. Then Eric.
I know. I said
Benner, Casey Rhodes, and I've been here before and with the same request. I know we've talked about the Day property for a long time. I also live and work off of my Folsom is a travel route that we very often take, and it certainly, right now, without the added extra traffic that this project would provide, is a dangerous road. I think my biggest concern actually are for the kids waiting at the school bus stops that, in the now the light changes, it's a little better, but there have been times that those kids that are going to school at 6:30 in the morning are waiting in the dark. No street lights on that road, and traffic is very, very fast. So we just, it's only gonna get worse with this project. I do find it interesting when everybody's coming to the table with these projects, that they kind of mentioned something about equestrian. Unfortunately, equestrian trails, when Folsom was paved, the county promised us that we were gonna have accessible equestrian trails along that road, and, it's not safe to ride or bike, and it's really not safe to ride a horse down that trail. Unfortunately, at this point, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense building equestrian there, because you really couldn't get there. But, we certainly gotta do what we can to protect our community, and especially our children. Just wanted you guys to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Philomena.
Good evening, Philomena, 4245 Wayne Church. I just, heard people talking about it. I was mentioning that I'm a guilty party that tried to pull across the road on Folsom, and it made me realize when they said, when they were trying to come up from Raymond or the other ones. I never thought about that. And when this came about, I said, well, gee, I'll be more careful next time, number one. Number two, I think when we are addressing something like that we should take these neighbors in and see, how it fits that, and not just put the road in there and we were only thinking about Folsom and not about the other side. I wasn't thinking. I just hope that we will consider it for the other neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Anka? Anna? Anka. Anka.
Yeah. Anna, I live at 12912 Raymond Drive, right at the corner of Folsom and Raymond. Me and my husband moved into property about a year and a half ago. We've had to put in 80 Eureka trees to actually block the noise and a fence, because at nighttime I'm afraid a car will end up in my house. There have been several accidents over the night due to high speed or drunk driving. I also have a letter from my husband, which is a deputy, and I would like to read it. My name is Daniel Bishnan, and I'm writing this letter in reference to the November 4, 2014 Waxahachie Groves meeting. I've been residing at 12912 Raymond Drive, Waxahachie since 2013. The main reason for choosing Waxahachie Groves was giving my family what is now becoming a luxury of this part of South Florida, the open space and privacy, as it was put on our town's website presentation, free to pursue our dreams without worry that our actions will infringe upon our neighbors' rights. In this odd and fresh niche, we pass the days feeling very safe on watching our children playing and fishing on our roadsides. And we very well know that's eventually gonna go away. I understand that all this is about to change, but we should not forget the members of our community that will ultimately pay for the price for this modernization. Our property is located at southwest corner of Raymond Drive and Folsom intersection. Sadly, since we moved in, we witnessed the traffic on Folsom Road worsen, with irresponsible drivers using it as a racing track that resulted in quite a few vehicle crashes. Big trucks with unregulated diesel engines bent on Crestwood Road are a constant presence on Folsom Road from the early mornings to the late nights. I can only hope this situation is not a shadow of what this planned commercial complex is about to bring to our beloved neighborhood. As a law enforcement officer and member of this community, I firmly believe that banning the heavy commercial trucks traffic, installing speed bumps, and enforcing the speed limit, among other measures, shouldn't be viewed as a wishful thinking, but as a responsible way to approach the reality of what will follow the settlement agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to the community. Got Joe Siciliano. While she's coming up, I find a little bit of deja vu because I was sitting at the same dais for a different governing body when I voted against the paving of Folsom. And I said one of my reasons was it was going to become a speedway, and I was voted down because I was told it would be much safer this way. So it's funny how, you know, I'm cursed with a good memory.
Good old Brian Miller.
Joe?
Joe Siciliano, 1830 B Rip. And kind of just a follow-up, and like you said, Folsom being paved made it a thoroughfare, but it got paved and it didn't get the speed tables that the rest of the letter roads are receiving in order to keep the traffic down. So as you start forcing traffic down the other letter roads to use as the speedways to get to Southern or wherever it is they're trying to cut through, I think you can't forget about all of those as well. I mean, if you exclude Folsom as their speedway, they're gonna go to the next one, and if that one's excluded, then they're gonna go to the next one. You need to just keep pushing them right through our town, because we've clearly lost Okeechobee. It's gonna be four lanes all the way down soon enough. So you need to just keep them on that road. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. And everything else, all right, that takes care of 7A. We have a motion and a second. And I assure you, we're going to be dealing with traffic, sites, and all that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Roll call. Roll call vote for this ordinance.
Okay, for ordinance 2014-06, Plan Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Darrell,
Yes.
Councilman Golden, Councilman Rocket,
Yes.
Councilman Liang.
Yes.
All right, passes 4-0. Moving to 7B. Mike?
I'll go ahead and read the title. An ordinance of the Town Council, Town of Los Angeles Groves, Florida, adopting amendment REZ 14-02 to the Town of Los Angeles Groves Unified Land Development Code concerning a rezoning application proposed by the owners of the property affiliation Frankie J. Day to change zoning designation to subject properties in agricultural, residential, and commercial load to accommodate the future development of a maximum of 9.3 acres of commercial uses located at the southwest corner of Okeechobee Boulevard, Folsom Road, Los Angeles Road, Florida, providing for amendment to zoning map to reflect such change, providing for conflicts of zoning effective date, and this rezoning ties in with the land use plan to make the zoning consistent with the land use act. I don't know if you need any presentation from Mr. Kilday on that. This is first reading. It will be a second hearing again, as with the other one on November 18th.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 2014-07.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we've got a, Ryan beat you to it. So we have a motion by Jim, second by Ryan. All right, I've got several of these people marked 7A and B. Keith Harris, do you want to speak to B? All right. Dennis Slip? I support the motion and waive my. Thank you. Pat Painter?
Pat Painter, Raymond Drive, Loxahatchee. It's amazing. I moved out to Loxahatchee 31 years ago when the Days property was called Sawyer's Citrus Funny Farm, okay? And we've gone a long way. I'm not saying we went the right way, but we've gone a long way from that. And I think we need to really step back every so often and really examine what this community really represents. I didn't come here for, urbanites coming in here and dictating development. That wasn't what rural meant to me. I mean, I moved from West Palm Beach to get away from that 31 years ago. And it's degraded ever since I came here. There needs to be some tipping point where we say no, and it's up to y'all.
Thank you, Pat. Jeff?
I don't need to speak.
Okay. Lawrence Cordy? Okay. Merrick? Unchecked?
Oh, she just left.
Oh, she's left. She's kept it our personal. Joe, you had A and B? Do you want to speak to the?
Oh, no.
Okay. Bill, you're down for 7 weeks.
Yep. Well, you wrote a couple other final two things on that. Under the ordinance 2417, it's got zoning requirements for CL zoning district. Some things need to be changed as well going forward. Minimum lot size is listed as 1 acre. And then there's some strange things. Florida Air, the FAR is 0.1, but you can have a maximum building and roof structure coverage of 25% on a CL. And if you do that, 25% of an acre is 101, I'm sorry, of 9.3 acres is 101,277 square feet. So there's a few non sequiturs between FAR and how much building structure under roof can be on a property under CL. So that's got to be clarified or more lawsuits. Then the last comment I'll make is, yes, it's obviously got to go forward in some form. I'm glad that this isn't the site plan here. Is if you remember back, everybody brings up the non-residential, low impact non-residential. When we did the neighborhood plan, you were there, I was there. I did 2 sections, but we had no commercial on Oak Grove. Then Flick et al. If you connect the L and the I, forced down our throats.
This was the representative we had. I'll interpret for Bill a little bit. This was the representative that the county had given us when we were putting together our neighborhood plan. And when we tried to say no, he said we can't do that. So
right, yeah. So he said no. Put down when petitioned by a landowner, the county at that time will undertake or undergo consideration of low-impact non-residential. Unfortunately, and I'm to blame because I was on the first council as well, is that we should have attacked that immediately upon incorporation. And as Pat knows, we incorporated to keep the county out, but damn, this urbanization is, I didn't think I'd ever build on my property in Louisville.
okay, and then Nina Gordon.
Nina Gordon Road. I wanted to ask staff if you could have better, cleaner copies of the zoning, the maps in the future. I tried to zoom in there.
Just remember, your comments are to us.
Totally illegible.
Okay.
The other thing is that we seem to turn into drive-through town. I think there's a drive-through on this property that's planned, and and we have all the drive-throughs on B Road, on B Road and Southern that are planned. We really ought to stay away from that. When we had our vision hearings, what do you call it, not vision hearings, our charrettes, we really had something different in mind, and it's just going to be cut through town and drive through town if we continue on this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. All right, that's all I've got for this item. So we have a motion and a second for the ordinance 7D. Roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Gerald,
Yes.
Councilman Rocket,
Yes.
Councilman Liang,
Yes.
Mayor Browning.
Yes. Okay, moving to 8, managers report. Bill? Okay, hang on just a second. Let's try to keep it down as much as we can.
Okay.
Does the microphone work like that?
Yeah, but they're so far away.
Okay.
There you are.
That's
Better.
Well, my hearing is not that good, so I understand. The item that we, before you, John, get to it, the administrative update, or manager's update. Basically, it's items that are, that we're working on and that may come to you in the not too distant future. First, current activity, we brought forward the 6th Court North tonight. You've taken action, so we're moving forward with that. We've had some road clearance on 161st, on 22nd North, Road North, and River Lane. Have not heard any complaints, so I'm assuming that it's been okay. That was approved about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and that work's been completed. We attended the IGC meeting, and basically the next 3 items were relative to the IGC. The first was there's an issue going to be coming forward. It's an ILA between the district and the town relative to the town funding surveys for trails in the horse trail, particularly annual burn rate relative to the district. The district director has done a lot of work. He's got several quotes. Basically, he's narrowed it down to the town's contribution to perform the survey for all the trails. It's supposedly about $98,500. The total project for town and roads was roughly $104. The district will be picking up the difference. That item, I hope to bring that to you. Said the next meeting could be the first one in December. Additionally, there was a new item brought forward relative to making the Los Angeles Road Patrol District a dependent entity. That was tabled, put on the next agenda for the IGC relative to discussion on that issue. Roads to the IGC. There was an issue that the district has relative to fill material. Short essence is the impact is not really on the town, it's for the district primarily. The district gets first bid on the fill material. Once they're done, they don't need it. The town gets second bid if we don't need it. Then it goes out to public bid, and if nobody takes it at that point, it'll be first come, first served to pick up the fill and put it into their location. So those items were basically the 3 items discussed at the IGC. The Finance Advisory Committee, you've already got a report from Standish relative to software as a service and your accounting system, which I've been a proponent of for almost 3 years, advising the council and mayor that you need to have your own financial software rather than moving from vendor to vendor. Finally, we've got a building update. We've received two appraisals on the Chamber of Commerce. We hope to have the inspection done before the end of this week. And we were hoping to have something for you tonight, but it'll be on the next agenda for some kind of action or direction by the council relative to building. Palm Beach State College, a reminder that this Friday is the groundbreaking ceremony, and the council obviously is invited. I believe the mayor will be speaking, and the district has graciously afforded a videographer to commemorate the occasion of the council and the opening groundbreaking ceremony of the Palm Beach State College. And finally, we're going to go through a process. Fire Rescue, Mike Ariana has submitted a report for your review, basically telling you what your tax dollars are going for. We hope to be doing a monthly report like this from fire and talk to Lieutenant Combs, getting a report from them so that you know what activities are occurring within your town and we can keep it moving. Other than that, that's the end of my report. It's just to keep you up to date on where we're going.
Okay, any questions? Ron?
Because Bill brought it under this subject, but the deal with the water control district becoming dependent, I'd like to propose to the council that we direct management to go out and get 2 or 3 quotes to do a second study on whether it's beneficial for the town and the water control district to be dependent. We did it once before. We've got people that want to make it dependent, but I'd like to get some quotes and have them bring it back to the council, find out how much it would cost us to do another study, and take it from there.
Okay. Anybody else on this?
Yeah, we try to help you out here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'll take the reviews first. This was done a while ago. Money was spent. Conclusions were water control district has to make the decision as to what they're going to be. It's not something the town can decide. So I getting quotes to find out, to hire somebody else to come in and find out if it's beneficial for the town. We're still at the point where the water control district has to make a determination as far as whether they're going to be interested in becoming a independent district. Now, we had a conversation with a joint session of both groups where at this point, the conclusion was that we move forward with what we're doing now, the long-term goal as far as the district will become more of a water maintenance, flood maintenance type of operation, less and less roads over time. At some point where we reach that point, then I think it would be appropriate to start considering dependency or just saying as a district independent because their mission will not overlap as much as it will today.
Right.
I think some of the things that we do have to discuss in regards to the future of the water control district, we'll have to discuss the boundaries for the district and the town. How are we going to deal with that issue? And also in regards to our charter in relation to employees. We need to address at least those 2 issues before we really start moving forward on possibly making the district dependent. We've talked about it, but we've never come up with a solution as of yet. So those are 2 of the main issues that I see right now. And then obviously there might be some more in the future. But we need to discuss that before we really start moving forward on anything in regards to possibly making the water control district dependent.
Just to let everybody know, and please understand, this is state legislature type stuff. For it to become a dependent district, that means that the Water Control Board has to decide. We're not talking about the members of the Water Control Board. We're talking about the acreage of Loxahatchee Groves have to vote for it by the acre. The way everybody hates, but that's the way the state law is set up. So the people with the large acreage have to vote to basically make the water control district dependent. The town has no say in it. It is a state legislative thing. When we brought in the expert before, and I appreciate Ron kind of wanting to do it because people want it to be dependent, and I understand that. We've got 4 of the members of the water control district, I believe, that are kind of for it becoming dependent. But understand what I'm saying. For it to become dependent, The acreage landowners have to vote by the acreage to make it dependent. That means that they are opening themselves up to more taxation without representation. So just so you understand, it is not an easy thing for us in that board to say, we're going to make it dependent once we get through the items on the fact that the Water Control Board has more land than the town does, or that they have employees and we don't. So just so you understand, it is not as simple as what it seems, you know, and my honest opinion is I don't think that the owners of the large acreage, which means the nurseries that right now have a pretty good ag exemption, are going to open themselves up for maybe giving themselves 50 or 60% more taxes paid to the town through the Water Control Board. So anyway, just to let you know, it is not as easy as it seems, but we will be pursuing it. So, anyway, okay. Any other things for Bill? The only thing that I would like to change, that thing on the fill, is the last thing, instead of first come, first served, I definitely want it to be available to our residents before anybody else. In other words, I don't want to see a contractor coming in from outside and saying, we'll take it all, and you know, in other words.
The district director is working in that. He's doing exactly that, with preferential treatment to town residents.
Okay. All right, moving to 10A. We have no old business.
New business, Mayor.
We have new business. 10A.
The Redgate Committee has come up with a design for horse signs, horse slow signs, 21. They've done a lot of work on this. They've come up with a nice plan. They are in the report, so they're recommending to you is the right side of page 106 of 119, the one that they've selected. With that, if you're in agreement, then we will move forward to order 21 signs as shown on page 105 of 119 for $1,785, and then start getting them installed.
21 signs? That's what you told me.
21. If I told you something different, my mistake.
Okay. All right. 21 signs. All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase. Installation, we don't have one of those.
Well, really the design more than even the purchase. You're okay with the design that they've selected?
Well, we're going to make one motion, design and purchase, correct?
Okay, that would be fine.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Jim, second by Ryan. Further discussion? I hope these don't end up in the bottom of there.
Just
I heard that the other day.
Yeah.
I like the sign, it looks good. What I was hoping, have we checked to see if we can possibly put it on underneath the existing posts so we don't have to add more posts?
We're gonna try to utilize existing posting as much as possible. I've heard that one also.
Yeah, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. I've got no public comments for 10A. Oh, yes, no. So anyway, further discussion by council. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. 10A passes 4-0. Moving to 10B.
Mary, the next one is actually quite synchronous with today, the voting day. You may or may not be aware, but there's going to be a voting change for 2016 in the state of Florida. We don't know what the date is exactly. However, the town has a charter which delineates exactly when the election is and various aspects. The clerk, Janet, has proposed that we remove that, but it would take a referendum. What we're asking the council to consider is removing that section, creating an ordinance that delineates the activities, and is asking the attorney to draft the appropriate referendum language for that to occur at a, Janet, is that a special referendum during our normal election in March?
That's what we're gonna try.
That's what we're gonna do.
Okay, so what we're looking for is direction for the town attorney to draft appropriate legislative language to accommodate moving the charter piece over to an ordinance in order that we can accommodate the 2016 election that we don't know exactly what date it is yet.
Okay, and this was a result of our county supervisor of elections basically coming down saying we had to move it.
And the state.
The presidential preference primary will not be in March in 2016. It also will allow you to move the other provisions relating to canvassing board, the qualifications into as ordinances so they can be addressed by the council if issues come up again like we have.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we do this for discussion also. In other words, I've got to discuss this.
We're going to discuss it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ron, second by Ryan. Okay, Ron?
While we're taking this to the election in March, the other thing I'd like to see, if the council agrees, and if they don't agree, then we'll forget about it, but our situation on borrowing right now, in other words, we've got 36 months we can borrow, we have to have it paid back in 35 months. I don't like that. I like the town to have the authority, if we want to borrow, if we want to do a bond, and the people want different things, I want to be able to do that. Now, if the council disagrees, then forget it. The only other thing I thought about is getting a vote as far as the people of Waxahachie wanting paved roads. So that's the only thing I'd like to see put on there.
Yeah, I think later on we'll be talking about what to put on it. I think right now we're just talking about setting up, changing the date.
Well,
correct.
what the direction is requesting us to require me to prepare an ordinance on whatever subject matters you want to put on a referendum in March. If right now the request from the administration is to deal with the election first half. If you wanted to have additional questions put on that ballot, you would have to give me direction to bring back separate ordinances for those different questions, and you can consider that at that time. It's my understanding this has to be done by the second meeting in January at the latest, so there'll be time to review and discuss it, but it would be separate ordinance we
Okay. Okay, so Ron is, the way I understand it, because it was presented a little different, his motion is to vote for this with the addition of those two items, correct, Ron? Okay, you're all right with seconding that?
Right.
Okay, so we have basically,
So we've got 3 subject matters to bring back to you. The proposed ordinance converting the election materials to ordinances, a referendum on amending the charter to change the requirements for borrowing, and then the third one would be a referendum on roads. And I guess that I probably will need, maybe we can discuss that in depth at the next meeting, what the direction would be, how you want that question asked. There's a lot of issues about roads. It's important that it be worded clearly, that they understand what you're asking them to vote on, paving, ozone, resurface.
Right.
So on that one, I would request that we put that one on for specific direction, so we're clear on what you want the ordinance to say.
okay.
The reason I was bringing this forward is because if there's language, we anticipate we got to present something to you, you may want to change, tweak, or otherwise modify what it is we draft.
Yes.
So, and time is short when you think about it. You got December, January, we got 5 meetings. This can be accomplished. So we're trying to be proactive, bringing this forward, and Councilman.
The roads are going to involve a lot of work because we're going to have to talk about how we're going to pay for it. Now, but anyway, those are okay. So would you have time to put those on?
We do, but that's why I brought this forward, is to do the voting, no question. The other items that the Vice Mayor brought forward are, I know the council had that discussion, and if we're going to include that, and that is in the motion, that is the direction for the town attorney and staff, and what is in that, assuming the vote is affirmative.
And the only other thing that I want to add, and I don't know that it needs to be this, but I would like to see if we're going to move the election date to try to go coordinated with the primary date for the county elections, because it would save us quite a bit of money. We wouldn't have to have a special election. That was just a thought.
Are you talking about, again, what happens in 2016 or?
Yeah, you know, I mean, in the
Because
future.
2016, it's gonna move, it's gonna probably be in January.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, so if we're gonna move our you know, March meeting,
We can investigate.
you know, then, you know, maybe move it to when it wouldn't cost us as much. That would mean the terms of who would be on it might be a little longer, but then it would, then start from that point. Just a thought, because it would save us the money for a special election.
We'll talk about that, because one of the things we be careful about is changing terms of.
One thing, when Ron mentioned a possible vote for the current debt, I think we are a year late on our charter review. I think that's something that we need to discuss, and also in regards to commercial on Okeechobee, we could also modify that with the charter review. We're a year overdue, so I would suggest soon we form a charter review committee to look over these issues.
No.
I am not in opposition, I agree with that. My issue is that you have 5 meetings to go through these ordinances, and getting it before the charter review committee in this short period of time.
No, I'm not talking about this right now, but
Oh, okay.
our charter in general,
Right.
we're a year overdue for.
Okay, that I understand. Thank you. I just wanted to get clarification. I'm a little worried that we're going to try to run this through a charter review committee as well.
Okay, and I know we're not gonna wait that long for the other item we need regarding Okeechobee Boulevard, so.
Mr. Mayor, is this motion now is multi-party? I prefer the
One
motion
motion.
to be addressing the specifics of what the town management came forward with to be voted on separate from anything else.
Well, right now I've got a motion that includes all three, and a second that includes all three. So, all right, we've got March, first off, the only comment card I've got.
Mark Herzog, A Road. Another referendum question that needs to be included in the election material is term limits for the council. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to add that to your?
I don't want to add that to it.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Mayor, if we're going to do a charter review, then those are the types of things that I think you put into that charter review, comprehensive review. Stuff like this, which we have to make changes on now, I would say we limit it to that, and we look at other things that come out of the charter review, and look at all those things in a comprehensive way. And we're up here picking and choosing which goes and which doesn't. I think if we have criteria that this is required, we got to make a decision based on what we have to do today, and let if it's a charter review that comes forward and says, here are the things that we ought to look at. I think that would be a secondary exercise.
Yeah, obviously, the thing on term limits is me, but I'm the old man, I mean, I'm the old Marge doesn't want me up here. Anyway, okay. All right, we've got a motion, we have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, it passes 3-4. Jim Rucker. All right, moving to 10C.
Yes, Mayor. I want to congratulate the committee on forming 3 years, and they've been doing a lot of work since we've gotten here. But I would like to represent or ask the council for work for the attorney again to instruct some changes to the resolution, the enabling legislation, specifically it's section 2IB, items 2 and 3, which are a little general, and that's on page 116 of 119, a little general in its description of what the committee does, and it's a little, what I'm looking for, a little more direction from council directly to the committee, rather than as broad a scope as items 2 and 3 are, which basically opens the door for anything and everything that can be discussed. So I would like to look at that or have your consideration in that matter, that the attorney could draft some language tightening that up, and that the direction from council to the committee would be more exacting. And secondly, I would recommend that until we finish the surveys and get all that recorded, that the committee really has met its goal currently, and once we get the surveys in place, start then the committee back out moving forward. But I would look to the council's direction on that.
Okay. So what does this mean? We need a motion on this, or do we need?
Well, I would like a motion
Just consensus,
to
or-
instruct the attorney to work with staff to clarify activities of the committee.
Okay.
And the language.
I'll make such a motion.
Okay, Jim makes a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Ron. Council members?
And it's, from my understanding, it'll be reactivated once the wording is worked out, and also when we get these surveys done and some of the other.
Well, the only other thing that's going to make sure that it comes off, gets active, is when site plan is submitted relative to the Day property. That's a requirement of that property and its development. So if that happens sooner than when we get the surveys done and we get the easements and the committee can start really being active, then we would move in that direction as soon as that item is up.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know which one's gonna happen first. Site plan could take a year, could be next month.
Okay. Any other council members?
Under this subject, I have some comments.
Okay.
I watched the last RETAG meeting, and I appointed somebody to be on that RETAG meeting, and there was 2 people, as far as I'm concerned, that was abused at that meeting, and it was uncalled for. I had 2 problems, okay? I had problems with the chairman, the way he abused these 2 ladies, and the other problem I had was with, and I apologize because Tom's not here, but I don't want to wait till the next council meeting. I want to express myself tonight, mainly because my main concern is the person I put on the committee. I did not put somebody on that committee who put so much time and effort into trying to make some equestrian trails. I did not put her on that committee to be abused by the chairman or by the council member. Now, I'd like to get it clarified tonight. I believe as a council member on a committee, we are there to advise, observe, and report back to the council. Okay, from what I've seen, unless my eyes is playing tricks on me, what I watched in this thing was a council member that basically wanted to take control of this meeting, and he basically said the committee was worthless, they weren't accomplishing anything, why not just do away with it? That's the way I interpret it, and if I interpret it wrong, I need somebody to clarify it. But I would personally like to, and it's not my responsibility, but I would like to see Keith Harris removed from this committee because I think he got out of control and I don't think he's going to be able to correct himself. Thank you.
All right. Along that line, though, we do need a clarification or something as far as the role of the council member on those committees, because I always understood it to be answer questions and basically report back to the council.
The attorney and I, given that the council moves in this direction, we'll work to define the role of the liaison, more clarity in that regard.
Okay. All right, got one comment card, Keith Harris.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Our resolution gives a narrative of what the committee is to do. It's to serve at the pleasure of town council. It is to analyze and make recommendations for council's consideration. As chair, I would like to very much follow that guideline. If we have stepped out of bounds, please tell us. Clarification will do so, but the documentation right now says that we're to do work from time to time as council directs, but we're not limited to it. The primary responsibilities are to look at road conditions, trail conditions, greenway conditions, make advisory recommendations for town council, underutilized and would like to participate as town volunteers. And we wish to continue at the pleasure of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Yes.
Ron spoke about this just a few moments ago, and I looked at the video also, and also I was kind of disappointed with the behavior. I'm not happy with what happened, and I'm going to execute my right, my privilege to replace my appointee on the RETAG committee and also on the LTA.
Okay. All right, moving to,
The removal requires a vote of the council.
what's that?
The removal would require a vote of the council.
Are you at that point where you're here? Okay, then
Motion to remove.
make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to remove my appointee on the RETAG and the LTA.
When you look at the LPA, because that's the section one, and we come back to the retag, you can do that motion under a resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion, and that is?
Is that what is it?
Yeah, I know.
Remove Keith Harris as a.
Who's your appointee?
Quick Keith Harris.
Okay, we have a, and we vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to remove Keith as Brian's appointee from that committee. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion by council? One of the things, whether I agree or not, it is each of our council's appointees that we put in. So I put weight on their suggestions. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. So you will need another appointee to that committee. Was that for both the committees or one?
That was just the
Retag.
retag. I'll have to come back and see what.
Okay.
And if I could get clarity on the motion to suspend RETAG meetings until next necessary, was that motion included in?
That motion was
Both
first.
of them included, both items 1 and 2 on page 114?
The motion to give direction to amend the resolution, there was also a second part that was suspended retag until.
I think that was all in one motion.
Okay.
Two motions.
Two motions. No, we had one motion. That was one motion. If you want us to make a second.
You can do that by second motion. Why don't we do it that way?
Okay, we need another
The first
second.
motion was only to give you direction.
Okay.
That's what the clarification.
All right, so we need another motion to suspend until we get, I thought it was one.
I'll make that second motion.
Okay, Brian makes a motion, is there a second? Second by Jim, further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, passes 4-0. All right, moving to public closing comments. And I've got Bill Lauder's card, that's the only one I've got. Do you have one there?
I would just like to thank the council for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. Bill?
Bill out of E-Road, a couple of quick things at the end. Again, I'd like to reiterate the request to have the council do something on the, vote of no confidence or resolution of no confidence in Board of County Commissioners with what they're doing in Central Western communities. Also, with further development, this 4-lane Okeechobee 2E Road, I'd like to see, as much as I don't want it 4-lane, if it's getting 4-lane to E Road, have it go all the way. Come stop at E Road and do it with a median. Okay, so we need to get pressuring the county on that. And then the other one is, Councilman Gerald brought up the idea of a vote for road paving rather than a town-wide, I'd like to see it remain a section by section vote of the property owners. Because give me dirt or give me death.
Okay, that's the only public comment I've got. Mike? Town attorney?
I have a report this week.
Yeah, I know.
Go Gators.
Go out. Go Tigers.
Yeah, okay. It's his comment, be careful. You already had yours.
You put on your manager.
So, all right, town council members. Start with Jim.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, Ryan?
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Go Gators, and then also, my condolences to Bill and his family.
Love.
The mayor, I thought, brought up good news about E-Road continuing on to Folsom. You may already know it, but the other good news, which I think is real good news, is that Shelley Vanna at the last county commission meeting, when they were discussing Minto, she had a list of things that she basically wanted Minto to stand behind. And one of them, I forget which article it was, but one of them was to pay for the red light for the town of Loxahatchee Road and D Road and Okeechobee. So I believe the town manager has put a hold on us spending any more funds for this red light because of that condition. So if you know Shelley Vanna, please take time out to call her and thank her for looking out for Loxahatchee. And I'm sure somebody in Loxahatchee coached her or educated her, so whoever did that, I'd like to compliment them and thank them.
That was your mayor and myself.
Yeah, we are putting together a letter.
I would have rather had her no vote.
Yeah.
I would look to the council to approve or authorize a letter on behalf of the council of appreciation to the commissioner and the balance of the commissioner. Beyond that,
With consensus, yeah. This is just for the letter of thanks, so, anyway, all right. And mine is, you know, as a result of Bill going in, and I want everybody to understand, that was not a trade-off. We didn't say, if you give us a light, we'll get off the Minto, because I still spoke against it, you know, every chance I got. But I appreciate Commissioner Vanna remembering, because we had mentioned 3 of the items at the end of our conversation, because our meetings were about Minto, but I said there's also 3 items. We want consideration for a traffic light at D and Okeechobee, and we want 2 horse crossings across Okeechobee, which you will have to ask Bill and I about one of the responses, because it was classic, but I will not say it from here.
No.
And then the third was the land under the county commission board, should we decide to buy that. And we had an affirmative from all the commissioners that they will work with us on giving us that land or whatever, so we're not, you know, so anyway, want to thank everybody for coming. And and the third thing, I think, you know, I fought very hard against Minto, but I think we've got to be very careful. You send a letter to the county commissioners, because from here on out, we have to work with them. I talked to Mike about the concept of making a resolution and spending town money for alert, and because we did not, all we had was a resolution against it, we really didn't take an active part in that. But I would encourage those that still don't want that to contribute to alert. I will do the same myself. But anyway, so thank you all for coming, and motion we had yeah, worked out.
Seriously? How do we get rid of him? Every time they try something, it doesn't work anyway.
Thank you.